Hey everyone, happy Friday. Hey John and Tom. How are things? How's the weather up there in Canada for you, John?
Getting cold.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
We had a freezing day the other day, but
Oh
it,
yeah.
it's supposed to be 88 here today, so it's which is pretty warm.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
So it's freezing during the night here. Actually. Hi Tom.
yeah. Hey Tom and Jesus. I saw Tom. I saw your notification pop up in my channel. I'm like, oh, I'll go join his thing, but yeah, I'm stick. I left it just because I'm like I can barely follow two streams, let alone three of chats.
Yeah, I'll leave it open, but tend to end up focusing on one specific window more.
Yeah, it's hard to try to
You
watch
forget where
everything.
your conversation was, and
Right.
you're like, yeah, no, I'll just focus on whatever chat's the most active, and I kind of stick with it.
Yeah, someday we'll have to write one to use the API to pull it all into one interface, and then make it so much easier. So let's see, we got TN. So, anyone do anything new, anything fun lately?
Hey guys.
Hey, Zeus.
Howdy. Yeah, today's high here is like 57, 30 at night. It sucks. So I have a fire going.
Don't try and live in the Caribbean then.
Yeah.
You're not gonna like it. Gonna be a little bit of a humidity problem here.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people. I'm like, it's not the heat that's the problem for me. It's the humidity.
Oh,
Like
amen.
I've gone to Vegas and it was like 100 degrees one day and it felt great
Nothing. Yeah.
because there was
Yeah.
0% humidity. I was like, it's the humidity that gets you, not the heat.
Really is.
Definitely.
Although when I drove from LA to Vegas one time in a convertible and it was like 107 out, I had the top down. I literally felt like I was in a convection oven. Like the air around me was circulating and it was so hot. I was just like, okay.
You were in a convection oven,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So who's
but
got
it's a dry heat.
right? I mean, I had a girlfriend in Miami, she's actually from the Dominican Republic, and I'd go down there and visit her, and I'm like, how do people live in places like Miami or Houston? Like, I don't know. It's miserable. So, who's got something they're working on? Who's got something they need help with, or something to show off?
Mm.
There's Autumn.
Well, I can show the new change that I'm gonna have for the HK toolkit.
Yeah, good one. Good to start with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other day we made a video showing how to use it for version 2, but in Azae's like, yeah, when I have some time, I'm going to get around to it. I'm like, dude, work
Just do
on
it.
it. Yeah, just work on it for, I'll pay for it. Like, I mean, it's a cool tool. And I want to facilitate people trying version 2, right? And to have a tool that makes it really easy to switch between, that's
Right.
what, to me is really cool. So,
So right now you have seen me playing around with the tool. What I added now, because of let me reset this real quick. Something that I have to fix at some point. But what you're gonna notice is that here, let me add my version test right now. So what it does is the following. Just 1 minute. Right. I just added this drop down here. So you have to, at the beginning, you have been noticing that I'm switching versions with this menu up here, and it is a little bit cumbersome. But I just decided this is going to be kind of like a permanent setting. That's your default. You want, whenever you start the tool, to start with one default value. Let's say, for example, Unicode 64-bit for version 1. But while you're running tools, you might switch temporarily to a different language. So what I did is that I created this drop down here that temporarily now switches between versions fairly quickly. So now we are in version 1, 32-bit. Now I just switch to the other one here, and it would be 64-bit. And the same with version 2 and so on. So this new change allows me to not have to be, looking for, the menu up there to verify or switch between them. But remember that this particular drop down now is not a permanent change. Whenever you restart the tool, is going to default to whatever you selected up here. So that's the only that I just wanted to show how that is going to be working from now on.
And I think it's a really cool concept just to help talk through that sometimes you have settings that you want just temporary, like to make a quick change, but you don't want it to stick, right? And,
Right,
and
exactly.
that's a great, something we don't see that often that people, think about and say, this is just something I want to make a tweak to. I don't want it to,
Right.
affect my settings. That's
The next
very-
thing that I'm going to do is just have a hotkey for each version. So, for example, F9 from F9 till F12 would automatically switch to one of the versions down here. That's another thing that I might want to do. But for now, this is a quick way for you to switch between them. And again, to test version 2 without you having to have it installed, because you can have the file. One of the things that I'm going to be working on today or later on is just having in the preferences a place for you to put the paths. Right now is automatically picking the paths of version 1 and version 2. So they're already saved automatically. When you run the tool the first time, it goes ahead and sets some default paths in this configuration file. But you can manually change them if you want to, but I will make it so that it is actually in the GUI. But this is where you would find the paths of them. And this is just definitely when you run the tool the first time, which AutoHotkey executable launched the tool, I'm going to grab that path. And from there, I would actually just check whether version 2 is there. But you can manually change this. I'm just going to add a GUI element so you don't have to target the XML file itself. But after that, the tool is going to be highly configurable, and it will allow you to select a location for whatever AutoHotkey version 2 is. So you don't have to have it installed. You just need the executable, and that's it.
But, and the other thing I'd say, actually, a couple things, Zayas, is you mentioned having a hotkey for switching between the versions.
Yeah.
If it was me deciding, I would take advantage of the fact that you have 1 and 2, use some sort of a key combination with the 1 or the 2, because it's so intuitive, right?
Yeah, like 32 1 and 32 2, right? So that, well, yeah, I could
just hold down A, H, K, and 1.
A1 and A2, right? No, but that's an interesting concept. I will.
Yeah. Well, it's just
think about it,
because often people, which especially in VS Code, right? You almost feel like people created these hotkeys and they didn't give a rat's ass if it stood for what it was.
Anything, yeah.
And you're like, how do I memorize this?
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
Yeah. And the other one, though, which I think is a great point, is you mentioned there, right now, we can go into the XML and we can make changes. And it's a really important thing of when do you create a GUI, right?
Right.
For scripts that I write for myself, I'm like, I can go in and edit this GUI. But when I'm going to give this to other people who either aren't at the same level, or if it's something that I'm frequently changing between, and I want that list of things available, and I don't want to have to go look it up, having a GUI to just quickly change between them is really convenient.
Exactly. I remember that we made a video about how to decide whether you start with the options and then create a GUI, or if you create the GUI first and then create the functionality for it. So this ties in with whatever you're saying. Usually there's a lot of things that as soon as you figure out there's a few options that you change very quickly, like very often, then a GUI will facilitate that because you have them, all the options right there. You don't have to memorize them. That's the point of the GUI, right? But yeah.
That and to prevent making really stupid mistakes.
Yeah, a comma is just that I was missing a comma or something like that, you know.
Somebody's asking where they can get the updated version from.
I haven't finished with it because I just updated that yesterday. So I'm just gonna put the other part on the GUI, and as soon as I have it, then we're gonna go ahead and announce it. I would just either send it, but yes, it will be on the Automator. We're gonna have a copy there.
And we'll be here next Friday, so hopefully we have
and
we can
actually
update you then too.
one of the things is that the tool itself has an auto update feature in it. I have to really test it because I added it and I never tested it with anybody. But basically, if you have my previous version, the one that I was using a few days ago, if there is a new version, it should actually notify you and you say yes, and it would update. That's the idea behind it. We will see if that is true. We will see really soon.
I'll say I'll download the current version and then just let me know when it goes live, and I'll let you know if I get that trigger,
right?
Message or whatever.
Yeah, perfect.
The URL over my head is the pretty link for it, and then like I say, we'll update it. Isaias, I think I mentioned it. I haven't released the video yet, but we talked the other day. We did a video. You and I did a video on, unless someone has something to work on, right? Like I haven't seen anybody ask a question yet, but we did a video on test driven code, like creating a testing environment stuff. That might be a fun topic for us to discuss unless someone has something.
Yeah, depending on, let's see if anybody has a question, because that might, again, there's two types of people who create scripts. There are some people who just want to automate something really quickly. Now, test-driven development is not really for that type of apps. If it is just a one-off thing, or is something that you are going to create a piece of code that's going to do some simple tasks and that's it, then test-driven development, I would recommend it, but it just takes a little bit more time. Now, test-driven development just means that you, before creating the code, you go ahead and figure out what you expect from the code. And if you have some expectations, whenever you go ahead and write your code, it should match those expectations. And if it doesn't, it should let you know. So yeah, we did a video on that. I don't know if you want to see a quick example of that, how I would go about it, but yeah.
And again, unless someone has something.
Wanted to throw something out. I see John's on the call. So quick access pop-up thing. I don't know if you guys have updated your Windows. So 22H2. Actually, I'm going to share my screen real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Right there. So this was a kind of small thing, but your Windows File Explorer in the new version, we now have tabs, and it is awesome, and I love it. I noticed whenever I do a quick access pop-up, like jump to a folder, it affects both tabs. So like I get screenshots, I got home. If I jump into this junk folder, it actually affects both tabs. Oh, so John, I was just curious. I know that's, you might have just discovered that because the update had been out long. I was just curious, had you seen that? Were you going to do anything on it? Any
no,
thoughts?
You're the first one reporting this, so
okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it's Windows 11, which version?
It's 22H2. I just got it, I think, within the last week. It's real recent.
It's rolling out.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to take a look at that. Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's not like anything broke. It's a brand new feature.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah.
well, the thing is that you know what? Basically, this is what happens when you create scripts for other people, right? So as soon as you create something for yourself, it will always work because you don't make many changes. But as soon as you create a piece of code that is to be out there. There's somebody that has a version of Windows and another one has a different version, and they could have the same version of Windows but different machines. And then in the end, your code needs to account for all of that, right?
Well,
Yeah.
Which
I'm
does.
still on Windows 10 on my development machine, and I have a test environment with Windows 11, but not sure if I can update it with the latest release. I'll check this. And at some point, I'll also switch my main machine to Windows 11. Yeah.
And this
On
is
another note, that does look like a really cool productivity feature, having tabs available.
well,
yeah,
yeah,
it's gonna be awesome. Another good thing, is like we're here to support you guys, but it's always great when you're helping us too. So, it's a nice like two-way street here. So we always appreciate when people, let us know these little things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's handy for sure. So
I assume some of you guys have seen I did a couple with Leo Davidson. He's one of the developers of Directory Opus. Thanks to John, actually. John got us on a call, and then I made a follow-up video with him. But would anyone be interested in see if he could attend one of these calls, and we could have him walk through Directory Opus and showing, because it's a really powerful like replacement for Explorer.
I actually looked into Directory Opus. It's been a couple of years. I did an analysis of Directory Opus and another program called File Center. I don't think it's as well known. I ended up going with File Center just because it had PDF editing tools, and Directory Opus is just Explorer replacement. The other big thing is File Center. Whenever I like save a Microsoft Word document, I get the File Center dialog. I think with Directory Opus, I don't think it opens up when you do like an open or a save within a program. If Directory Opus had that, I may have gone with that one, but I know that Directory Opus has tabs and it is awesome. So if anybody hasn't seen it, yeah, I think it'd be well worth looking into.
It has, I mean, John has built, that's what we did the video on, of how QAP interacts with Directory Opus, and the two will work really well together. But in the deep dive I did with Leo, we talked about some of the other integrations that are available. But anyway, yeah, it's a really cool, amazing tool.
Yeah, there's a lot of add-ons, things like advanced search, advanced find and replace, tools that make your work really much easier, and things that you can't find, of course,
we don't want any of that, John.
Yeah.
Nobody here is interested in that. Yeah.
There you go.
I see Geek Dude just joined. Awesome. Hey, Geek Dude. Good to see you. And Ray. Sorry. So does anyone have anything they're working on? Need help with?
Any questions? It's actually interesting that recently people do not have like many questions. Everybody has been learning since.
Yeah, that's because y'all are doing such a good job.
I was just gonna say that, like, the only way how that happens is that I taught them, but that's not how it works. Just some people, sometimes people are a little bit, shy and they don't like to ask questions. But the good thing right now is that you can actually type your question. You don't have to talk. So it's okay. Just go ahead and type your question. We will do the best to try to understand what is going on. And if not, we would ask clarifying questions just to make sure that we can go ahead and answer. It could be any type of question, so don't worry about it.
That's something I always say on my channel is like, if I lose a subscriber, it's like, I'm fine with that, because I'm like, hey, that means they don't need me anymore. They're moving on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of also why, some people have asked me why I've done some videos on like JavaScript, Python and everything. It's like, I never plan to fully dive into those, maybe a few videos. And those are solely there to like direct you. And maybe once you want to learn another language, like, okay, I've mastered AHK, let me look at JavaScript. So I always do little intro videos in the hope that you will expand and, move on to maybe someone who teaches JavaScript as a main channel feature.
Well, and those views are nice too, right?
What's up?
Those views are nice too, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, they don't do well as AHK because that's why people are there. But those videos are there to hopefully expand your horizons eventually. And on my channel, actually, I'll link it in the chats here in a second. I actually have a bunch of YouTube channels for you to look at, and it says like, okay, this his main focus on his channel is JavaScript. So I'm, helping people, expand their horizons. Hopefully, AHK is not as well known in the workplace as like Python or something. So eventually I think people do want to move on. At least I hope.
I was
I'm always
chatting
trying to at least know the basics of each language so I know if I need to use it or not.
Yeah.
I was chatting with Isaias this morning about doing stuff in other languages like Python, and we had a call with a client, Joanna. She actually just joined the Hero group as well, and she was learning Python. And I said, years ago I started learning Python, and then Python, it's an amazing language. Don't get me wrong, right? I love it, especially for data science stuff. It's real phenomenal for doing a lot of very fast things. Great, but Isaiah said today, he's like, yeah, when you try to add a hotkey, like, oh mercy, it's it's not easy, right? And that's the thing. I'm like, with AutoHotkey, there's this niche of we are often controlling other programs or building our own, but it's very easy to connect to other programs and to do stuff with other programs. And I agree with you, Tom. Like, I don't ever say AutoHotkey is the bomb and only use it. Sometimes, who was one of our clients? We're like, oh yeah, that was with Alex. He was doing this it's a really great task, but he's trying to compare all these emails and their PDFs, and he's trying to do OCR in the PDFs and then compare them. And I'm like, what you're trying to do is an enormous task. And
It's
I
not
don't
something that is going to be as easy as you think it might be. But this is the other thing. Remember, guys, AutoHotkey is just a tool. There are different tasks, and you cannot use a hammer for everything. There are certain times that you need something else, right? It might get the job done, right? But totally bad, right? But in this case, AutoHotkey is like that. AutoHotkey is great, especially great at hot strings and hotkeys, and connecting to the COM objects that are in your computer.
Controls too.
Right, exactly.
There's
But as soon as you deviate from that, like say, for example, data analysis, at that point, data analysis is AutoHotkey is never going to perform better than Python or say R or, the one that you use, SPSS, Joe, those things are for data analysis, and they're going to be better than AutoHotkey at that. It's not that you cannot do it with AutoHotkey, but it's going to be a nightmare. That's what is going to happen. So yeah, it's just about learning different tools is always a good idea because you don't know when you need a different one, right? And actually, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, and sometimes, as much as we like AutoHotkey, it's easier just to do some things manually.
Right.
Even if you could automate them, it's just easier. I was spinning some text and making titles, and I ran AutoHotkey through like 100,000 titles, and then I just copied those over into Excel spreadsheet and got rid of the duplicates because it was so much easier to just randomly generate the titles than to go through them systematically, programming wise. Then I just eliminated a duplicate. It got rid of like 6,000. I'm like, good enough.
Which I'd agree with that. At the same time, once you realize, like, Maestria taught me this really simple thing. Hey, just take your thing you're wanting to dedupe and use it as a key in an object, and it automatically removes duplicates, right? And I'm like, it was much more of a programming answer than it is about coding, right? It was like, oh, you got to think like what's happening in the background. And the sort command, holy cow, is crazy powerful, but it can be very complicated. It's also destructive, which is one of the few in AutoHotkey that are,
Actually,
overrated.
I will later on show something about that. I think John had an interesting thing that I'm actually curious about. He was gonna ask for help for something that he found the solution. I want to
solved it, but he
verify
wanted
what
to
that
show,
was.
yeah.
Right, he wanted to share it. Right, I'm actually curious about it now.
Yeah, I worked. One day I had always this bug that I was going back to, how can I solve it? And hopefully some guys like you, Friday, will be able to help me solve it. But finally I found the answer. But let me share my screen. Yeah, I just found this article about File Explorer versus Windows 11 that we were talking about earlier. But let's get to quickly board editor. Let's just bypass that. So
Which, by the way, we could actually show you something that we were working with the clipboard. Maybe you might
Yeah,
find that
mhm,
interesting.
yeah. So this is a clipboard editor. You can edit your clipboard, save it, do a lot of edit things on that. I won't go into that right now. Just the thing that I had was when I wanted to change the hotkey that launch that shows the app. You have this dialog box that is the same that I developed for quick access pop-up, and it always worked well for years. But here now I was not able to do anything, any click that I was doing that like OK, cancel did not work. So I was wondering why, what was the issue? And, I tried a lot of things. And finally, what I found is that another piece of, no way to close the window. It's just frozen there. So the only way was to restart the application. And what I found finally, yeah. So do you have any idea why a dialog box would be kind of inactive, or events
disabled,
do not occur.
right? Okay, yeah. Let me double check. So this is not a normal window. Is this a child window?
That's a child window, yes, and it's
okay.
And now, the parent is the one behind.
Yeah, so you have the parent disabled. The child window is supposed to be grabbing the events.
The events, and
for some reason it is not taking it. Huh? That's a very interesting one.
Yeah. And finally, I'll give you guys right now so that we can look at other things too that we. It's related to a critical command that I use here, critical on. And when I did the critical off, I just copied and pasted this here. And I changed the allow interruption in the command, but I just forgot to change the on to off. So this thread that is running with a set timer took the control, if you wish, and made it critical, so no other thread could interrupt
it.
And it was doing nothing except preventing other threads to do anything. So that's what's finding.
Oh my God, that's
so the solution was just replacing N with FF. That was
right. but this is the thing.
That was the 2 letters bug.
That's a good one. No, I'm going to tell you something, and this is actually something that might be for everybody else. Look, if somebody comes to me and asks the question, "Hey, do you know why this window is not working?" I would have never guessed that, because there's a piece missing on the context. What was the piece that you never mentioned about that you had critical on in a different thread? So if I don't know that, right, the only way for me to know that is whether you mentioning it or showing me the code. And a lot of people ask some questions without that little bit of context, and it doesn't matter how experienced I am, I will never figure that one out.
And
like
even
that's not going to happen.
And even having the code, this piece of code is absolutely not related to where I had the bug. So
that's
so I had to at some point. I have to leave just for a minute. 1 minute, I'll be back. Okay, sorry about that.
No worries. So basically, guys, this is one of the. I just want to drive this home. Is like, whenever you're asking questions, context is really important, and the point is that whatever he was experiencing, it's not a normal bug, and it is related to something that he did somewhere else in his code. In his code, somewhere else, he created this critical command. What that does is that it locks the current thread, and no other threads can happen before before that thread is gone. And in his instance, the main thread was locking all the events from the child window. That's what was happening. So I wouldn't have guessed that at all. So let me see.
I saw a mage that he was having an OAP nap. A what?
I think that's like old age person or something. I forget what the P stands for. Old age something.
Don't get me wrong, I take naps.
That sounds like a glitch in the code.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Jean, any updates on your clipboard tool?
That's what I'm working on. It's progressing well. I'm close to releasing it at version 1.0. I'm still in beta release now, but you can download it on the Quick Access Pop-Up forum, forum.quickaccesspopup.com. There's a section on Quick Clipboard Editor. And at some point, Joe, when you have time, we could maybe make a short video just to demonstrate it.
Sure. Yeah,
You
I
have a
have
direct link
a
to
pretty
that?
link to it. I'll throw it in the chat.
Yeah.
We're actually working on one for a client, but we need to confirm with them that he does. I think he said he doesn't mind if we share it, but and I know he won't mind us just showing you, Jean. But I don't know if we can share it publicly like this.
Right.
So, but at some point we'll confirm that. But it's an interesting tool. We were manipulating the clipboard, grabbing to see if there's HTML on it, and then if there is, doing specific stuff with it.
Okay.
Right. And that's the
Kind of-
interesting thing. You know that the clipboard can contain different formats, right?
Mhm.
And many people are not aware of that. But basically, if you go to Excel, for example, and copy some cells, if you paste it in Word, it's going to be pasted as a table, as an HTML table. But if you go, for example, to a chat application and you paste it, it's going to be pasted as an image. It happens. So then that means that the application decides which part of the clipboard to use. But when you copied that from Word, from Excel or whatever, it copied an image, it copied the HTML, it copied the plain text. It is up to the other application to decide which one to take from that, right? So it is a very interesting concept when you start working with
And just to return to WinClip, a tool that shows what's in the clipboard and allows to a class, in fact, that allows working with it. But it's a very old class. I was wondering if there are other tools that just to examine the content of the clipboard. I remember you showed something to do that. I just remember what it was.
I remember one that the guy who we're developing the tool for, he showed a screenshot of another tool that actually kind of like
where you see the different formats. And yeah,
I think that's what it was doing. Yeah, but I'm not really sure. I will have to double check.
Yeah.
And then there was the example from Scan, who was letting you set the HTML and plain text, data in the clipboard, which was interesting.
Yeah. So basically what happens is that dealing with the clipboard, usually it looks as an easy thing, but it might be trickier than it looks like. So yeah, in the end, I do recommend taking a little time, learning a little bit more about it, because you can definitely get very interesting stuff out of it. So let me see, is the clipboard tool written in V1 or V2? At this point
V1.
is, well, yeah, so that's V1, okay.
The one I was talking about, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I like about the clipboard tool, John, that you're doing is you divided it up finally, right? You realize it's really kind of two different approaches, right? One is interactively working with the clipboard, but the other one is writing rules that will get applied to stuff in your clipboard, which for me, that is like, I could definitely see being able to use that coming up a lot.
Yeah. But I finally discovered that the one I was using every day was the editor. So that's why I decided to work on the editor and add many functions to it, like to convert the content. For example, you have something that you want to put in an URL and you need to convert some characters to be compatible with your. So there's conversion tools, conversion of the text for XML, for a lot of things like that I'm adding to it. So kind of.
Right. There you go. Any other questions that you may have, that you guys might have? Anything else that you're working with? I see this name like Axel Fubuler.
Yeah, Axel, I gotta say, I love your.
Yeah, the icon, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what.
Does the
Is that a real world representation of you, or it's awesome.
right. Now, if nobody else has anything else, I can go ahead and explain what we were talking about, the test-driven development. See? Nobody would remember the name. Axel Fobler. That's a good one.
So you have a YouTube channel? Do you do AutoHotkey stuff? Put the link in the description, or I'll put it on my YouTube channel as well. I
Yeah,
probably
definitely.
am a subscriber.
Check out.
Oh good.
There we go.
I subscribe to as many as I can. Oh, you're this guy. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I've watched quite a few of your videos. They're very concise. You're doing a really great, and it's all in V2 if I remember right. Is that right? Maybe not all, but yeah, it looks like it.
Oh yeah, I've seen this guy. I recognize
yeah.
the thumbnails right away.
There you go.
Well, that tells you you're doing an excellent job of branding.
Well,
Yeah.
although this is, I'm like, the images you select for your thumbnails, to me, don't all. I'm like, how is that? What it's on, but yeah, no, I'm not. I don't mean to critique it. Yeah, let me shoot. I thought I put it there. Hold on a second. I'll have to go create one more. I got a bunch of pretty links, like for Tom's channel and for Chunji's channel and Spunova. Just so when I think about it, I can share, especially when it comes to V2.
Actually, yeah, we need V2 content a little bit. I definitely
Yeah, we haven't talked
see a
about
lot of we do have, yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, we need more content on that, because I see it as a very good future. Like, I don't see most of the times when there are changes, a lot of people are a little bit hesitant to change, because most of the time changes are not the best. But in this case, and I actually took a long time for me to switch to V2, but then I realized, yeah, it looks like a good change. So it's good that there's a channel out there that is just devoted to V2, for example. So that's great.
By the way, and I mean, we won't go into the weeds, so I don't think it matters. But another client of ours, they're creating this really significant testing environment for AutoHotkey V1, and it was really cool to see that they're creating tools that will allow people to easily try out AutoHotkey, and they do Excel automation. And anyway, it was really neat. We helped. Or I say we. I was a fly on the wall. Zayas was really talking to them about better structuring their code and organizing it in a way, especially on Git, to allow for less redundancies in keeping everything organized. It was a really interesting. I maybe I'll talk to them and see if we can release it as a video. Like if they would care. I don't know if they would care.
Actually, they were also doing the tests.
Right.
The test-driven development. And well, let me go ahead and show you how easy, or what the idea is if you have never done that. So let me just make this a little bit bigger, and basically just think about it as if you're just going to create a class or a function. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be, you can test either classes or functions, because in the end you're testing functions anyway. But let's just make a simple example of a class called string cleaner, and I'm going to create a class that will have different methods, and each method I want to make sure that it works perfectly in any conditions. And this is where, before I just create my class, but I don't create any code at all. What I do instead is that I create another file that is the one that is going to create tests for whatever I'm going to do later. So what I do is there is there are testing frameworks out there. I use one that is the one that Lexicus uses for AutoHotkey V2, and maybe Joe can link to it. The name is Y unit. This Y unit is the one that creates or helps you with this. But you don't need a framework like this. This just makes it a little bit more convenient, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But you can do your own functions for this. But the idea is, say, for example, I include Y unit, and I'm going to include two things from here. Y unit itself, which is the testing thing. And I also want to include Y unit, and I want to include the window element. This window element, what it does is that it's going to display a window with my tests. I could do output debug, for example, or, you know, other things, but a window seems like a good approach. From here, I'm going to also include the file that I'm testing, which would be this TDD test, right? So I'm just going to include TDD test, right? And now that I included, the part that is a little bit confusing is creating the test. So I'm going to create a class that is called my test, or you can name it whatever you want. And the code that will call the tests is from the Y unit element. I want to use Y unit window, which is this guy here. That's the one that I included. And then I want to test anything that is in my test, right? That's it. So this is the one that actually calls the tests. This class is just going to contain a few methods that will be called one by one. And let's create my first test. So my main code, which is my main class, is a string cleaner. What I want to do is that as soon as you pass it a string with quotes in it, I want to escape those quotes. Say, for example, what I do is like clear quotes. I'm going to name this one clear quotes. And the first thing I do is that I create a test. So I say Y unit dot assert, and this is my assertion, that if I call my function, let's call it, let's say string cleaner, and the method is going to be, I don't know, remove quotes. I just want to remove them on a specific string. So let's have my string here called, I don't know, let's make it like this. This is just some quotes like that. If I pass that string, it will return the same string, but without the quotes. So that's my assertion. As soon as I call this method in string cleaner, and I could just make it like this result string so that it's a little bit cleaner. So what I want to do is when I call this hypothetical method and I pass it this string, it's just going to go ahead and return this. So that's my assertion. Now, remember, this doesn't exist, so I can go ahead and create it. I just create a static method here, and it's going to take a string. Let me just make it a string. And what it's going to do is return that same string, but replacing. So let me just return false for now, because I don't have any code. This is my stuff. If I run this test should fail. That's the idea behind it, because I haven't created code that does this. So if I run it, you will see that, and this is the point of testing, that this function now failed. Now, here's the thing. It fails. I know that it's failing. I know why it's failing, because my method is not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So now, if I go ahead and do string replace from the string and remove all the quotes, now this thing should run fine. Now my test passed because my method is doing what I think it should do. Then I create another assertion. Now let's say that now I need, if I pass this other string with double quotes, well, my assertion is that it should actually keep the quotes. So let me see where it was, some quotes. This is what I wanted to return, right? So if it is double quotes, if it is one quote, it would remove it. If it is double quotes, I want to keep them. Now my code is gonna fail again. So now it fails because my function is not doing what I think it should do. Now I go back to my function and now I work with it. So I say, well, look at this. If it is just one, I could just say string replace, or if it is, so if in string, my string double quotes. So I want my double quotes. I'm going to do something, which is string replace double quotes for one quote. If not, then just replace them all. So I'm just checking. If they're duplicated, then just go ahead and convert them into one. If they're single, then go ahead and replace them completely. Now with this piece of code, my test should be green. You see that? But now my function, I already have two situations that I've tested, and then I create more and more tests, situations that might arise. People might put quotes with a single, for example, let's say, what happens if the person, instead of doing double quotes, actually used a single quote? You see that? I actually want that if you have a single quote, like with a backtick, I also want to have single quotes like this. My function is going to fail at that particular situation because my function is not taking that into account. So now you see it fails. Basically, the idea behind test-driven development is that I create specifications of what I should get in every single situation. And then I create the code that handles that. And in the end, what happens is you will have a very clear automatic testing of all your functions. And later on, if you make a change in your code, let's say, oh, you know what? Let me just change this to a dot. For whatever reason, when you run your tests, it automatically will break, and it's going to tell you, hey, your function, whatever you just did, broke the code, you know? And when you have different tests, like a lot of tests, changing one part of your file might affect other parts of your program. And this approach would automatically tell you, hey, this other function is not working just because of the change that you just did. That's the idea behind test-driven development. At the beginning, it is a little bit daunting, but just think about it this way. You create a condition that you're expecting, assert that the expectation is met, and after you have the assertion, then you create code that actually does that. And once you do this over and over again, especially with complex programs, you will find that this will help you have programs that are really stable. That's the idea behind it. Yeah.
Thanks, Jose. Yeah, and I know from our talk of the day, it was like, hey, you don't do this on one-off things you're just playing with, right?
No, exactly.
When you're making something either A, very complicated, or B, especially something you're going to share with other people, which is what we talked about earlier with the whole Windows Explorer and multi-tab stuff and different environments, right? Like the complexities there, it just starts to get crazy. That's where this comes in really handy. I was reading back through the emails from Robert. He did say we can share that. There's nothing proprietary in that tool, his tool for the clipboard manipulation stuff. So if you want to, unless someone has something there,
any questions that you might have, right?
Oh, wait, is there a way to auto-size the content of an edit control based on string height? Oh, length, excuse me.
Oof. You're asking for trouble right there, because the problem, yeah, no, I have gone this path, right? There is, but it is asking for trouble, because even if it works, as soon as you change the DPI settings on your computer, it's not going to work anymore. So whatever Axel just said, right? It is correct. You can make it work. There is a function out there, I think, in the forums that calculates the pixel height of the text in your screen. But if I remember correctly, as soon as it switches, as soon as you switch the DPA scaling, that function would give you weird results because it's not taking that into account. But yeah, the idea is to check on what is the font size and assign a pixel value to each font size, basically. And then calculate the height based on that, because you can say how many rows. This is one difference there. Do you only want to calculate the height, like the rows? Because you can calculate how many lines, or for example, calculating how many new lines are in text, and then just create a, actually, I did that exact same thing recently.
But
yeah.
the question is about string length, not height.
But I think he mentioned height, no? So
No, it's
No,
just
it's
Joe,
auto
when
size.
reading Joe, just
oh, to the length. Well,
the length.
right. That again, I could take how many characters there are and assign a pixel value. Let's say for each character, I have 12 pixels, multiply that, and I have my width. The problem again is as soon as you change the DPI settings, that width is not gonna.
So just make it that as a multiplier as well, right?
Yeah.
To some degree, and then yeah, as Axel, yeah, I'm not going to try to say that. Mentions, yeah, it's more math and more math is what it was.
It's a lot of math. Exactly, that's right. That is correct.
You want to show real quickly the that clipboard
sure.
tool, the GUI we're creating?
Yeah, and definitely. Let me see. Hold on. Here I have it. Let me verify something real quick. And actually, let me switch this guys to AutoHotkey 1. So this is the tool itself, and this tool has, for now, just 2 methods. But before I even touched those methods, I created tests for them, and I was saying, "Hey, this is my result. I'm going to read from the clipboard, and when I run my tool, which is this here, it should return that." So I created my testing first, and after I created all my tests, as soon as I created the program, everything was working fine because I had my test working first, right? So this is a good example of when I would use that. But here's the tool. So I am running the tool. It has a hotkey for now, Control-Shift-C. It would go ahead and copy whatever text you have right now, and then it would set a little GUI that I have out there. So let's just go ahead and go to the utomator.com. And what it would do is that if you have text like this and you selected, let me see, if you select that text and hit Control-Shift-C, it would copy it and it would convert it into HTML in a very specific way that the person wanted. At this point, it's just a list of HTML links, but you could change it to an HTML page, which not only has the links, but also has this, the whole HTML body kind of thing, right? But he also wanted it to be switched to wiki links. Like he had a wiki, and the links are formatted a little bit differently when you're working with wikis. So he wanted to have that format as well. So he wanted to switch between the formats. And as soon as you hit save, it would go ahead and copy it into your clipboard. And now whenever you go to, say, for example, any other window and you paste, then you have your tool like this. So the idea here, and I don't know if John is here, but one of the things that we were dealing with is actually getting only the HTML from the clipboard. And I think you have worked with this. I don't know if you're using the WinClip library, which is extremely great at getting different types of formats from the clipboard. In the end, it was a little bit overkill for what I was looking for because I just needed the HTML thing. But this actually grabs just the HTML. Whenever you copy from certain locations, for example, from a browser, if you select text and it has links in it, it would create an HTML out of it and put it on the clipboard. So this is a little place where I do that. And then I went and shoved that into a COM object, which is an HTML document. And from the document, then I just went ahead and just parsed the links like this, which was really good because I didn't want to use regular expression matching or something like that. The COM object already gives me a way of looping through the links. So I just grabbed all the links and just shoved them into whatever format I needed. Here is it. Joe says that I'm actually obsessed with the format, with the format function. Well, yeah, because I have a template here, and I just said format that thing with my links, however I wanted to put it. So yeah, in the end, this allowed me to have a very compact piece of code that is already tested for different situations. And as soon as I have that, then I know that my tool is going to be reliable because I'm testing it. If I go ahead and run my tests, like if I just go ahead and do this, run my tests, let me see, hold on. Oh, so that is not really grabbing the, did it include? Oh, yeah, so this thing just broke. But what happened is that when I run my tests on this thing, it actually goes ahead and, let me just reload this window. It should be green, all should be good. And that would mean on my end that my tool in general will not have any errors because I tested for every single different type of situation that I can come up with and tested that my function is actually returning what I'm expecting it to do. For example, I have here invalid clipboards. What happens when the clipboard is blank? What happens if the clipboard is not blank, but it doesn't have links in it? So I have different types of tests that in the end, I'm sure that when I go ahead and use my function, it's gonna already take that into consideration. Any questions on that?
What was the middle part?
The middle part, right?
I saw Mage's comment about back to Brian's question about the size and stuff of using monospace fonts. I think everyone here understands it, but man, monospace fonts, like when you're dealing with text, it's a game changer if you don't understand that they're available.
Yeah.
When you're trying to make something look pretty, whatever, monospace fonts makes every letter take up the same width, right?
Right.
So it's really, really convenient. Clipping links to the markdown system like Obsidian. Cool. Yeah, I think there's a lot of uses for stuff like that. We often like work with very similar pages over and over, and then manually will transform what we get in a certain way, right? And it's easy to not realize, think about it, and go, why don't I have a program that does this for me, right? But yeah, I think a lot of crap we do day to day, we just don't even realize that we're doing it, and it could be automated. I see Geek Dude chiming in here saying, remember, don't just use test inputs your code should work on. Make sure you test inputs that your code should fail on. Yeah, knowing that happens when you give your function bad input can give a lot of insight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, basically, when you start performing those the tests, when you start developing the tests, your idea of the test is putting bad data in it. Like, what would happen if my clipboard is empty? What if it doesn't have the text? What if it has garbage? What should I do if the input was not what I was expecting? That's the idea of the tests. They should fail at the beginning, and then later on you develop code to make sure that they are green. Once that is done, you can rest assured that as soon as you give the code to somebody else, if any of those weird situations happen, you're already covered. right? That's the idea behind them.
We gotta we're out of time, so we gotta run. But thank you all. By the way, we just announced we're having Saturday hero meetings.
Yeah.
They'll be at noon to 1 Central Time. So 2 hours after right now, basically on Saturdays. Consider signing up. We're having a lot of fun. People are making good friends. Scott here is a member, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of I'm looking Ray.
Halloween costumes next week, next Friday. Halloween costumes for our live.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Thanks everyone. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Have a great
Bye,
weekend.
guys.